Hey Leo, I'm right here. It is an absolute pleasure, honor, and privilege as always to be reading for you. So let's hop into this because something's been really, really, really heavy on my heart to, I guess, express to you. And I want to be able to speak to you today. So let's get into your reading. I've just been feeling really compelled. I mean, of course, I always do your reading, but something's really compelling me to do your reading today. So let's get into it. Spirit guides, angels, ancestors, what do you need Leo to know? What do you need our Leos to know? There's an old, and you know I always go to songs. That's like my point of reference. But there's an old song by Yolanda Adams called "Open My Heart." Now, if you know, you know. Okay, if you know, you know. But it's an amazing song. But that's what I'm hearing in my head. That's what I'm really loudly. So this is not. I'm gonna let you know now. This is not gonna resonate for everybody. This is absolutely not going to resonate for everybody. And I'll take the two that kind of flipped over. We got grief and we got relationships. I'm hearing tapioca too. So I don't know if somebody likes yogurt, eats yogurt, needs to get maybe some more fiber in their diet. Needs a little more fiber in your diet. Also something about the kidneys. Hopefully nobody's dealing with kidney stones. I'm not wishing that or trying to diagnose, but I hope nobody's dealing with any like kidney issues. I'm hearing kidneys. We got love. One more for my Leos. Purification. Courage is on the bottom of the deck. I don't even need to pull a single tarot card to tell you what this is, because I feel what this is. Oh my God. Oh, why do you do this to me, Spirit? Why? I know exactly. Yeah, this ain't gonna resonate for everybody, so I'm gonna let you know that now. I'm sorry. I promise I got you on the next one, but for who this is meant for, this is bringing up some deep wounds. And for some of you who will resonate, these are active wounds you are dealing with. And for others who may resonate, these are wounds that are buried or subdued, right? Repressed wounds. Wounds that are there, but you try not to focus on them. You try to go about your day-to-day life. And you try to, I guess, if you will, put it in the past. That's happened. I've healed past it. I've let it go. I need to move on. I need to move forward in my day-to-day life. And because we have relationships here, this is not just pertaining to romantic relationships. This has to do with your interpersonal relationships, your family relationships, your relationships with friends, your relationships with potentially coworkers, and yes, even romantic relationships, maybe even relationships with your children if you have kids. There's something here, Leo, what it feels like is, the big keyword is healing, right? And I'm about to say something that I know I'm going to get some slack for, and I know other people, and this is no shade, I promise you, but you know I'm going to always keep it absolutely transparent with you on my channel. The thing in this spiritual community that kind of bugs me the most is the word healing. Because I say it myself, don't get me wrong, but the word healing is thrown around where it's like, well, go heal those wounds, go back and heal those things, and life will be great. And, or once you heal those things, you can now have the correct relationships and have the love life you desire, and you can elevate your vibration to a higher existence, and et cetera, et cetera. Let me tell you something, Leo. This is the one thing a lot of people tend to not tell you about healing. And I'm going to be very transparent about this. Yes, do the healing work. I don't care if it's long ago and you feel like you've healed past it and you're moving on, you don't want to go back and look at it, or if you're actively dealing with some things that you need to heal now. The thing about healing is there's 3 different types of wounds. And I'm going to put this in an analogy to, burn wounds, right? You got first degree burns, second degree burns, and third degree burns. All of those 3 different types of burns are different levels of wounds. All of them require different levels of healing. This is what is being focused on here for you, Leo, when it comes to your relationships, whether it's your relationships from your upbringing, your parents, your family, how you grew up, whether it is your relationship with friends, co-workers, siblings, your children, or romantic relationships. When you look at this from the context or perspective of a first degree burn, you get a first degree burn, the skin cells will grow back. Yeah, you won't have any scarring damage. You may not even be able to tell down the line that you were ever burnt there. Now you get to a second degree burn. This is where it gets slightly tricky, because with second degree burns, it gets a bit deeper under the surface. The skin cells will grow back. You may have some discoloration. You may have some, especially for my melanin people out there, that may not grow back, the same way. You're going to have some discoloration scars. You're going to have some, if you will, maybe like some, I don't want to say tears, that's the wrong thing to say here, but you're going to be able to see some form of impact to that area. It's not going to be fully healed like a first degree burn, but it's not going to look like a third degree burn, but you're going to be able to look at that wound and tell something happened in that specific area. Third degree burns. You get past the skin, you start potentially, depending on how bad and deep the wound is, sometimes you can even get past the muscle to where bone is showing how bad the burn is. And I say this from personal acknowledgement from seeing my brother suffer a third degree burn to where we were seeing the literal bone, through his arm. The reason why I'm telling you healing isn't just, I'm going to focus on me, do the spiritual work, maybe even go to therapy, which, don't get me wrong, all of those things are really great. But what is forgotten a lot of times that people don't really talk about in this community that you need to understand is how to coexist with your wounds. And I say this all the time, Leo. Time does not heal all wounds. It only softens them. So you got a first degree burn, first degree wound, whether it's trauma, PTSD, whether it's experiences, events that you went through from a relationship or relationships with people, again, family, friends, your children, your siblings, or romantic relationships, depending on the level or the depth or the intensity of that impact of trauma, you can either heal it and completely move on where it's no longer affecting you, or you may not even remember it, or you can heal from it. It's still there, but you know how to kind of work around it, so it doesn't even really bother you. You can look back at it and reflect on it and look at it from an objective point of view, but it doesn't really have or hold any bearing over you. Then when we get to these third degree burns, these third degree wounds, these third degree pains, that it doesn't matter how much healing you do, you're always going to have that point of impact ingrained, because the brain itself changes its chemistry when you deal with trauma, when you deal with traumatic events, when you deal with traumatic experiences. And I think this is something that needs to be understood, that when you deal with third degree burns, meaning third degree trauma, third degree experiences, third degree pains, third degree wounding, you have to be able to coexist with it and not just try to heal it away, because you can't. And I think this is one of those things where we set unrealistic expectations about certain things, where it's like, this happened so many years ago, I should be over it, or, that person moved on and they were able to move on with their lives, or I've moved on in my physical reality, but why is this still haunting me? Why am I still dealing with the same circumstances but with new faces? Why am I still seeing repetitive patterns in my life from things that I dealt with years ago? Why am I still operating out of some instinct of my trauma or of my pain when I've let that go, or I should have been moved on? And this is where we have to give ourselves grace, because we're trying to exist from, I don't want to say from, but we're trying to exist away from our wounds and not existing with our wounds. Being able to coexist with our wounds. And what does that look like, Leo? Coexisting with wounds. And I don't know why this is so important to talk. I really don't know why this is important to talk to you about, but this is what this feels like, especially with this purification and love energy here. But it's very important to coexist with our wounds, because when we deal with traumatic events in our life, just like some form of blunt impact or something that's really traumatizing to us, that memory can be so traumatic. The pain, the agony, the grief, the depression, the strife, and even for my ones that's been in survival mode and that has dealt with survival mode and dealt with trauma because of having to live life through survival mode, those specific moments in time can become a blur. Where you can look back to, somebody asks you, how was your 2003, or how was your 2007, or how was your 2013, and you can't remember much, or if anything, of those years, because those traumatic events that took place during those time frames were so traumatic to the psyche, it completely blocked it out. And this is how trauma works. This is actually psychology. This is how trauma tends to work when it's a third degree wound. So instead of, you know what, I've let it go, I've healed past it, I moved on, we are still operating and existing with that wound that we're trying not to look at or move past, instead of being able to coexist with it and move towards a more peaceful future. Back to what I was saying here though. How do we coexist with our wounds? It's being able to acknowledge, and this is where this kind of gets hard and tricky, because you're going to have to, in some capacity, relive what you've been through. Meaning going back through your mental Rolodex, your memory bank, understanding why, then digging deeper and going to the root. And then digging deeper than that and trying to understand the external circumstances that caused you to deal with such trauma, and then how you process that trauma, what that did for you internally on a mental, emotional, and psychological level. Understanding that, and some of you may, and some of you may have not done that. But once you do that, what's important in this is where, again, grace comes in. Is being able to understand my wounding. For example, somebody could have dealt with a really bad upbringing. They could have dealt with an absentee father, an emotionally unavailable mother. They could have dealt with some form of sexual trauma at a young age, or dealt with a really bad romantic relationship that really burnt and scarred them deeply. Third degree burns. You can't ever heal a third degree burn, not to its fullest capacity. The skin cells won't go back the same way. So you will always have that area on the body where it's going to be in some way disformed from the rest of the body. That's how wounds show up. And that's how wounds will always walk with us in our life. Our wounds will always be there, and it will feel if in some way out of place from the rest of us, because you can't erase the trauma that you've been through. And I guess I'm needing to talk about this because I don't know if, because again, this isn't going to resonate with everybody, but for whoever I am speaking for, if you're in this space of saying, or putting aside, or putting your past in the past of things that really need to be worked on, because you may have felt like you've healed past it, you don't want to review it anymore, you don't want to relive it, that it's there. If I just focus on the future, then good. Which, don't get me wrong, as you should. But guess what? Those wounds always follow you. You cannot separate yourself from your wounds. Those wounds, what they will happen is come out subconsciously in different ways on the line through your actions, your patterns, the type of people you pick romantically, the type of behaviors that you have, the type of experiences you choose and choose not to deal with. Some may be for good, some may be for bad, but these wounds will always follow you. So it's being able to acknowledge why you, in this point of your life, past these wounds, or moving past them, why you may make certain choices, why you may feel like something is still incomplete, or still following you, or still, I guess, haunting you from your past. Not to sound ominous. I'm trying to figure out the best way to put this into terms, Leo. Because once you can really acknowledge the pain, which, don't get me wrong, when you feel like you've healed and you try to do the healing, and actually have done the healing, yes. But I guess the disconnect here that I'm picking up on for whoever I'm speaking of is you've acknowledged what has happened, you may have done the healing, and now you're separating yourself from the healing. If you got a first degree burn, yes, you could do that. If you got a second degree burn, sure, but it's still kind of going to be there. Third degree, you can't. It's always going to be associated with you. Leo, I don't know why this is needed to be important, but I guess healing isn't just you heal and then you move on with life. depending on how bad that trauma is, you have to acknowledge that that's always going to be with you. Time does not, erase our wounds. It only just softens them. So giving yourself grace if you do still feel those past pains or those past things come up, being able to nurture yourself, being able to love yourself, being able to be kind to yourself when you still feel, whether on a conscious or unconscious level, those past pains or experiences rise to surface. It's okay. It's okay. This is how healing looks. There's never an inline on third degree wounds, third degree trauma. There's never no inline that you will reach. That follows you. But it's learning how to coexist with it and be at peace with it and being able to operate within understanding your wounds, but not letting it take over certain elements of your life on the unconscious level. Consciously, you know how to keep it at bay. On an unconscious level, it can still come out on the line in different ways. And it's being able to be kind to yourself, gentle, patient with yourself. And that's all I'm saying. Somebody just needs to hear that it's okay that you're going through your healing, or that you feel like you went through your healing, but sometimes your past, those wounds may still come back on an unconscious level, or you may operate out of unconscious survival habits or behaviors because of your wounds. Nobody's perfect. And just understand that this is how it goes. You cannot erase third degree trauma, third degree pain, third degree grief and suffering. And it feels like with this relationship card here, there's been some form of relationship or relationships that has caused third degree wounding to you. You're not going to fully heal from that, and that's okay to understand it, but coexisting with it and not allowing it to come out in subconscious or unconscious ways. Being very self-aware of that allows you to be a bit more at ease with these third degree wounds that will follow you, okay? But I know sometimes we feel like we got to heal it all. We got to heal it all. Once we heal all, even the deepest of wounds, we'll be fine. No, they always follow you. But living with it, understanding it, and not allowing it to come out without your knowing is going to be the most beneficial thing for you. Leo, I hope this made sense. I know this is not going to resonate with everybody. I do love you. I'm sorry this video went on a little longer than it needed to, but I just really feel somebody needed to hear this message. Please know I'm here for you. Please know I love you. Please know that you can always email me, reach out to me if you just need a shoulder to talk to, cry on, say something. I'm here. I'll get back to you when I can, as soon as possible. Somebody's just dealing with some trauma or has dealt with trauma that's been very painful, and you've moved on as you think, and you've moved on past it, or you've done the healing, but sometimes those unconscious effects of those wounds still show its face, okay? I love you, always. Bye.